And Mark Emmert was so mad, and that was the second time I had a restraining order.
David, we've
What?
started.
What? Oh,
We
okay.
started. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Hoops HD. This is, if I can fix my camera here, this is our bracket rundown show, our weekly show where we go ahead and we build well, I'm not going to build the actual bracket on the air, but we'll at least build the seed list from which we will then later on build a bracket. I am your host, Chad Sherwood, joined off to the sides by both David Griggs and Matt Sikowski. Down below there by John Stalika and John Teitel.
Why do I always have to be off to the side?
Because you're not very important.
Why can't I ever be in the middle?
We are recording.
Get over here.
We are recording this a little after 10 o'clock here on Thursday night, so we just saw Duke hold off North Carolina, as well as Purdue pick up a win at Indiana tonight. Those games will be factored into what we're doing tonight. Later games this evening, including Wisconsin, who's struggling at Nebraska right now, and the Oregon-UCLA game, among others, will not be included. But, David, can you start by kind of defining what we are doing here?
Well, we are essentially building a seed list as the selection committee would do it, and we're ranking them 1 through 68.
Right.
So, and again, we're doing it line by line and discussing and debating the teams as we go.
And coming up on this Saturday, actually, the selection committee is going to release their top 16 teams. So, we're actually doing them a favor right now.
Yeah, right.
Correct? We're going to give them what they need, correct?
Yes, I mean, what else did they need but me?
Right, yeah. Well, that's why we do this.
But on that note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the screen share here, and we will show right here on the screen. This is our blank seed list. We're going to fill this in here, but we're going to do the format we're going to do is I'm going to randomly call on one of our panelists to give me their 4 teams on the seed line. I, as the moderator, have the power to veto one of those 4 teams and replace it with somebody else. And so the other 3 of you will be able to try to convince me what veto, if any, I should exercise.
Well, I have veto power too. I should. But anyway, Chad, can you define a couple terms for us?
No.
Oh, well, never mind.
A couple of terms that we will be using actually are protected seed. Those are these teams on the first 4 seed lines here, the top 16 teams, what the committee will be announcing on Saturday. They're not protected from much. They're protected from being at a home court disadvantage in the first round, but they're called a protected seed. The bubble is the teams that are not definitely in by any means at this point. The ones that are inside the bubbles are the ones we will be putting in tonight. The ones that will not get it in are currently outside the bubble, and they'll end up down here in the under consideration section. But I guess on that note, Stalika, I'd like to bring you in here and let you get the shot at the 1 seeds this week.
Well, they're not going to be changed that much from the order that we've seen recently. So I'm going to go with Villanova as my number 1 overall seed, Gonzaga in the 2nd slot, followed by Kansas and Baylor.
Kansas and Baylor, both of whom suffered home losses this past week to unranked teams. Let me go through each of you here. Teitel, let me start with you. Do you agree with him at these 4 teams?
No veto.
No vetoes. Okay. Well, if we get this done real quick, if Matt and David, you can agree as well. Matt?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I could go with Villanova, but that's no biggie.
David?
I have these 4, and you mentioned it was kind of crazy because we had Kansas and Baylor both losing at home. But when I get down to the number 2 line, like Virginia lost at home, Louisville lost badly on the road. So in their overall body of work, like a home loss does not take the wins off of your profile. Those are clearly the top 4 teams in my mind.
Okay, so that was a very long way to say no veto, correct?
Yes, but I mean, it's just a good thing that I'm here to keep you people in line because you people make a lot of mistakes. I gotta say.
Okay, well let's find out. Let's find out a little more about the 2 line. That 1 line was pretty easy. Teitel, let me go to you here. Who would be the next 4 teams up? And I think we may get a little contentious when we get to this point.
So I was thinking of doing an all ACC line, but even I have my limits. So we have to get some teams in there. Despite the minutes ago loss to the Dukies, I want to get the Tar Heels on the 2 line. Louisville, despite a bunch of injuries, I think has earned it due to the body of work. As far as the third for Florida State versus Virginia, I think it's a coin flip. Since Florida State beat them earlier this year, I'm leaning Seminoles. And for the fourth team, I would say if you give me a couple hours, the winner of the Ducks-Bruins game. But as we're not there yet, I'll go with the Ducks on the 2 line.
Okay, you almost went all ACC and left off Virginia, though. Matt, are you going to agree with him here?
Yeah, I would. I could not have Louisville over Virginia when Virginia has swept the season series, and their overall other profiles is similar enough that I'd have to have Virginia over Louisville. I do agree with the other 3.
Well, and just as a note here, we're seeing some numbers come up. This first column is the RPI, the second is the KenPom, third is the strength of schedule, and the fourth is your current ESPN BPI. And I do have some other ratings such as Sagarin and like that I can pull up if any of you wants to see them in lieu of that BPI column. But Titel, he just attacked your Louisville pick, saying Virginia did sweep him on the season. Do you want to defend that pick?
Barely. It's the best argument he's got going, and I'm glad he made it because it's a good one. As far as Virginia's other wins this year, it's Notre Dame and a bunch of bubble teams, whereas Louisville's beaten Purdue and Kentucky and Duke. So I kind of like the whole body of work, but I think it's a great argument. So if you want to flip the coin towards the Cavaliers, that's totally fine.
Okay, yeah, here is that Virginia profile. David, let me go to you here for your comments. Which way would you go on this argument, or is there somebody else you'd like to argue I should veto?
I actually had Virginia up here, but I had Louisville up here as well. It was – who did I not have? Where's – crap, I forgot to – yeah, I had –
line, huh?
Yeah, I had 5 teams on the line. I actually did not have Florida State up here. Okay. I really like Oregon. I think I like them so much that I don't see how you can ding them for losing to the 10th-ranked team on the road. So if you like Oregon up here now, I think you got to like them even if they lose. But, I mean, if they win this game tonight, they certainly belong up here. So I agree with 3 out of 4, but unlike Louisville, I would have Louisville up here for all the reasons Titel said. Florida State is the team I would move down. Florida State has excellent wins, but they also have losses to teams outside the tournament where Virginia really doesn't. I mean, I know that they lost to Syracuse over the weekend, and that's kind of a weak loss, but overall I just think Virginia is a better team than both of them, really.
Right, and there's that Louisville profile there. But, Sleek, let me go to you. I'll pull up the Virginia profile as well, but I'm sorry, the Florida State profile as well. But what would be your thoughts about this line?
I suppose I could live with Oregon being on the 2 line, although I would have them personally as a 3 right now simply because their best wins away from home are at Utah and against Tennessee on a neutral field. Not quite as good as what Virginia has or what Arizona has, who we haven't mentioned for this line yet.
All right, so and is Virginia the team that you would have here as well?
Yes, I would have Virginia up here.
All right, so what I've heard is all 3 of you want me to put Virginia, and you just don't agree on which of his 4 teams other than Carolina we should drop down here. And I think when you look at this Louisville profile, Matt, let me go to you before.
I was saying to make the point. I actually had Florida State as my top 2 seed, so I don't know way in, but I just like that Florida State profile, and they've been good wins. I think just the way you beat a Clemson team that just literally is my last team out of my field, and to beat them by 50. That wasn't Florida International or what some other Florida directional school.
Well, that has yet to be determined. I think it may have been Florida International.
Yeah, David, I cannot agree with you that Florida State has to go down the line here. Look at all those top 50 wins.
Yeah, they have a lot of good wins, but I mean, they're just still not as good as Virginia. So
when it comes to Louisville, they have a lot of top 100 wins, but they really only have the 3 top 50 wins, albeit that all 3 of them are good ones, but all 3 are also at home. So I think in exercising my veto, it's going to be Louisville that I am going to drop down, replace them with that Virginia team. Louisville, we obviously still have under consideration here. And Matt, let me go to you.
Well, Chet, you're only half right. Like you got the right team out there, but you took the wrong one down. You're already making mistakes.
David, if you are not agreeing that I am doing everything correctly. Matt, I'd like to go to you next. And
What the hell is that
and I
supposed to
hope
mean?
I'm assuming you're going to have Louisville in this line. At least I hope you do. But let me go ahead and get your 3 seeds.
Oh yeah, I do have Louisville. They were my number 9 teams. So that. And my next ones, I have Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Duke.
Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Duke. Tytel, let me start with you. Does Matt have the 4 teams correct here?
He doesn't, but he's still a nice guy, so let's not get on his case about it.
Okay.
I definitely think Louisville's got to be here. I love the way Wisconsin's been playing. I still don't see any huge, amazing signature win on their schedule so far, but they've beaten everybody. It's just a huge, great body of work for them. As far as a homer, even though Arizona got dump trucked by the Ducks, I'll throw the Wildcats in there. And as long as we're on a Wildcats kick, let's throw Kentucky in there too.
So you would go with Arizona and Kentucky in lieu of the West Virginia and Duke teams? Or in lieu of Wisconsin?
No, in lieu of keep Wisconsin and lose the other 2. I'm granted, Duke looks like a top 3 seed as of 5 minutes ago, but we're not there just yet, I don't think.
All right. David, let me get your comments on that. Do you think that West Virginia and Duke are mistakes that should be replaced with Arizona and Kentucky as well?
I think that no, I have Louisville and West Virginia on this line. I don't have Duke and Whiskey up here. I like Whiskey, but like John said, they just don't have the heavyweight wins. One of the teams I have up here that definitely has heavyweight wins is Butler, and Arizona is the other team. And I know Butler has some head-scratching losses, but they've started to win on the road. They just won at Marquette. My biggest complaint with them when you're talking about seeding them this high was that they struggle in true road games. But lately they've turned it around and they've started to win those. Look at Butler's profile. It is just a work of art.
Here it is. I'm pulling this Butler profile up for you here, David.
Yeah. And I have
A lot of
Arizona.
top 50 wins, including Villanova and Arizona. Let me go ahead and scroll it down here because you got to scroll down beyond all those great wins to see the bad wins.
There it is.
Well, there's one. Okay, but they've two. But okay, but
Georgetown
they've
at
won
home might
at
be
Utah.
3.
They've won at Georgetown, and they've won at Marquette. Those are good road wins. It's not like they can't win on the road.
Stalika, let me turn to you here on your thoughts on what move you think I should make against Matt's line here.
I think Arizona and Butler should probably be up here in place of teams like West Virginia and Wisconsin. I mean, I'll agree with David as far as Butler getting a nice win at Marquette. But what made that one kind of weird was one of their star players, Keelan Martin, didn't actually play in the first half because of a coach's decision and his presence in the second half. Butler seemed to lose their lead a little bit, but actually played their best ball when he was not in the lineup for some reason. I don't know if that's a matchup against Marquette or whether he's just been struggling of late.
So who would be the team that you'd knock down here? Would it be the West Virginia and Duke again?
Yes, West Virginia and Duke out, and I would have Arizona and Butler in.
And that's correct.
Matt, let me go to you here and try to defend both West Virginia and Duke, especially because I'm only allowed to veto one of them.
I would actually at this point probably defend Duke a little stronger. West Virginia still, I'm clinging to that win they have at Virginia. And I think a lot of these other teams either don't, or West Virginia doesn't say have the bad that Butler does. And I don't see Butler as a 3-seed quality team.
Well, West Virginia, let me defend them. They've beaten Baylor and Kansas, who are both on our 1 line, and you won at Virginia, who's on our 2 line. That speaks a ton, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's where I think their resume is pretty strong. Yeah, those 2 home wins besides the win at Virginia, and their metrics are really strong. That they haven't really done anything that the worst they've done is lose to Temple, which isn't great, but it's not as bad as losing to Indiana State.
Well, and then here's that Duke profile again: the big North Carolina win and the Florida win. Not on the road, not that road win at Virginia like West Virginia has, and they have that bad loss to NC State down there.
That's the one. I guess without Coach Kane, I think him coming back, that does help. I mean, that we've seen Jeff Capel in Oklahoma. He's probably a decent high major coach, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
Well, Tytel, let me go to you. Between West Virginia and Duke, if you had to leave one of them up here, who do you think is the better profile?
I like the argument that if you beat Virginia, Baylor, and Kansas, you're doing something right. So I'm going to go Huggy Bear.
And I'm going to agree with you. I am going to go ahead, knock Duke down a line, exercise my veto, and put Arizona up here.
What about the team that beat Arizona on a neutral floor? Chad is doing it wrong again. All wrong. All.
David, I'll give you a shot here. Go ahead and give me the 4 seeds.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me see who we got on this line here.
I ended up having Louisville, Wisconsin, West Virginia, and Arizona to fill out the 3 line.
Okay. Well, I don't. I mean, I want to make sure I don't repeat anybody because of these preposterous picks. But we have, okay, obviously Butler, who really should be on the line ahead of them. I have Duke, who we've already looked at. I think this is where they belong, and I think they're trending up. And then I have Kentucky, and this one's tough because I go back and forth between the 2 teams. But after tonight, I think I have to have Purdue.
Purdue picking up the win at Indiana tonight.
Yeah.
Salika, let me go to you here. Do you agree with him?
I can agree except for Kentucky, and it pains me to say this, but I'm going to be making the case for Cincinnati up here. I mean, I know their schedule is not the greatest, but when you're dominating the American at 11-0 and have a chance to practically seal it on Saturday, I mean, they're doing all that they really can at this point to get into a protected seed here.
Wait a second. You don't think Kentucky deserves to be a protected seed, Salika?
Not over Florida.
Okay.
I would take Florida before I'd take Kentucky.
Oh, I thought you were going with somebody else.
Okay, but you want to have Cincinnati over Kentucky and leave Purdue on up here.
Yes, I want Purdue up here still.
So you're not putting any SEC teams in your top 16. Just wanted to make sure I understand what you're doing. Here is that Cincinnati profile. Tytel, let me turn to you here. And you got Cincinnati with only 2 losses, but no really big wins.
Agreed. And I understand that where is the conference strength of schedule?
Conference strength of schedule. That is a number that I don't have on the screen.
Oh, damn you, workbook. I love the whole part of. I love the team. I don't like the conference, but as Salika said, they're dominating it and they're beating teams like Xavier and Iowa State. I understand there's no signature win, but I think that they have enough piled up that they belong on the full floor line. Good Lord. I want to keep Kentucky there. As far as Butler Duke, I was going to have them a little lower, but I would have Florida strongly under consideration here, but I can live with these 4 teams.
Butler did beat Cincinnati. I mean, so not only does Butler have a lot more wins, one of them is against Cincinnati. I'd like to point that out.
Matt, you're a big fan of the power ratings, and Florida, I just put them up there in the under consideration. Ken Palm of 6, a BPI of 5. I'm assuming you want to make the case that they belong on this line?
Yes, I had Florida as my top 4 seed going in, so I would actually swap them out with Purdue. I do have Purdue as my second 5 seed, so this isn't that high up for, but I think Florida's just a little bit better team, and profile, they're pretty similar.
Well, David, I just pulled off Florida's profile here, who absolutely pounded Kentucky this past week. Do you want to make the case why you have Kentucky in above Florida?
The neutral floor win against North Carolina. I tend to be drawn to what's on the top of a team's profile, and I just think Kentucky is a little higher. I know they pounded them, but again, Florida was at home, and I don't give them as much credit. Not to discount it entirely, but that's the reason. A case could be made that Florida does belong up there. Again, there were 3 teams that I really struggled with for 2 spots. 2 of them are up there, and the one that isn't is Florida. So, I mean, and it's just unfortunate that you're in a situation where you can't veto me.
Well, I can't veto you. David, Salika made the case that Cincinnati belongs to this line over Purdue. Do you want to respond to that?
Yes, that's insane.
Okay.
Purdue won in Indiana tonight, which is twice as good as anything Cincinnati's done. I like Cincinnati's team. I think it's better than their profile, but not by a whole lot. Whereas I get the sense that Purdue's profile is better, but Purdue is also a better team than what their profile currently is.
Timeout here. I did not say Cincinnati over Purdue. I said Cincinnati over Kentucky here.
Yes, thank you. But either way, Purdue is the team that I am going to go ahead and veto off of this line.
What are you doing? No, you can't.
Florida and Kentucky will remain on the line. I got to put Florida over Kentucky in terms of seeding just head-to-head.
Florida, Purdue beat Indiana tonight.
Indiana may not make this field tonight. It's going to be a big debate when we get to the end of it, I think. I think we have a discussion about that. But
just veto.
Stalika, let me
veto the puppet.
Let me head back to you. You gave us the line. I'm going to give you the 5 line as well.
Right ahead. Do whatever you like.
I think you like Cincinnati and Purdue on this line, but I'll let you go ahead and give me the line.
Yeah, I would have Purdue and Cincinnati as my top 5 seeds in this case. And it will be time to go ahead and add UCLA regardless of what happens. And another team that's kind of all over the place but still has enough wins to stay at the top of the 5 or the bottom of the 5 line, and that's the Creighton Blue Jays.
Wow.
And that is such a strange team to look at because you're right. They do have the profile, but they've only won 1 game since Mo Watson went out.
And that was at Butler.
You're right. It was a big win, but it's a Butler team that's been kind of schizophrenic too, though. So, they did something against Butler that St. John's and Indiana State also did against Butler, right? Titel, let me go.
Well, let's just keep poking at that. Yes.
Titel, these 4 teams, what are your thoughts, and is there something that's wrong here?
No veto.
No veto. Okay.
Wow.
Matt.
I'm going to argue for Notre Dame in place of Creighton.
Notre Dame in place of Creighton. Now, why don't you make the case there? I'll pull the profiles.
I think nothing real bad Notre Dame has done. I think they did have that nice win at Miami, who I've got and fairly solidly in my field now. Definitely above the first 4. And they also went over Virginia Tech, who's I think I have on my 9 line right now, so fairly again pretty solid in the field. The win over Louisville.
Right.
And, the neutral court over Northwestern. So they have some nice wins, nothing real bad. And I think I like it right now. And for the Creighton team, if you told me Mo Watson had a miraculous recovery, I like him better than Notre Dame, but not without him.
Yeah, and David, here is that Creighton profile as well. A lot of good wins, including the sweep of Butler. But again, only win without Mo Watson was the win at Butler.
Right.
Sorry, they beat DePaul at home too, but again, only win without Mo Watson was at Butler.
Yes. Well, I mean, you are correct. It's close, but I actually still had Creighton 1 spot ahead of Notre Dame. Notre Dame would have been my next team in, but again, the win at Butler and their overall profile, I still think you got to have them in. Again, they're at the bottom of the 5 line, whereas had Mo Watson not gone out, they would be at least a seed line higher, if not more. But I do think you need to exercise a veto, and you need to make Purdue take them and move them up and move Kentucky down.
All right. We are not exercising any vetoes in this line at all. We're going to go on to the 6th line, and I'm going to turn to Titel for the 6th line.
All right, thank you. This is a line of a lot of teams that have been struggling recently and some that have a lot to prove going forward. So my first 2 are the Terps and the Gamecocks, both of whom have looked awful this week after having a great season leading up to this point.
Well, South Carolina only looked bad at the first half of the game and in the 4th overtime. Come on.
Yeah, but I thought the 4th overtime is winning time, and they certainly didn't do it against a horrible Alabama team.
It's rare that you see a team have that good of a 40 minutes and lose. It's just that their 40 minutes started 15 minutes into the game.
I'll let you go ahead here. Maryland, South Carolina. Give me a couple others.
I want to give Stalika a little love with Xavier trending in the right direction finally, and St. Mary's. And if they win this weekend, we might have to jump them up 1 or 2 seed lines Beating Gonzaga is worth that much, but for now, I think 6 is a good spot for them.
All right, so you think Notre Dame belongs below the 6 line?
I'd be happy to explain why. Notre Dame has played about 7 teams that are quote-unquote top 25 caliber this year. They beat Louisville on January 4th. Fantastic win. The other 6 are losses. Villanova, Purdue, Florida State, Virginia, Duke, North Carolina. I'm not saying they should have or were going to win any of those 6, but this is a perfect example of I know exactly who this team is. They are not a top 25 team because they keep losing to top 25 teams.
Other than that, I mean...
David, do you want to take a look at this line here? And just a quick note here about South Carolina, a little fun fact. They won that 4 overtime game. Last night we had Fresno State, Wyoming go 4 overtimes. Tonight we had Samford and Wofford go 4 overtimes. 3 straight days with quadruple overtime games.
Right, and I mean, I'm anxiously awaiting tomorrow.
I think Penn's playing tomorrow. Maybe we got quadruple overtime with them. Go ahead, David.
I had Notre Dame on this line, but after that, Sturman, I'm starting to have second thoughts. It's just that I wouldn't have St. Mary's quite up this high. I have them very close. The next team I would look at is USC. And I know that their paper isn't quite there, maybe, but I still like it better than St. Mary's. And I think USC is really starting to play well. And having said that, I haven't looked at the scores. Are they losing really big right now, or are they even –
Oh, they're playing Oregon State tonight, so I hope they're not losing really big.
Right. And another team we need to talk about for this line is they're in a dogfight with the top 10 team right now, and it's just been one disaster after another as far as getting cheated, and that's Nebraska.
I'm not even going to listen.
I mean, we need to have an adjusted matrix to.
And David has been muted. Okay, Matt, your thoughts on the 6th line?
I'm still getting Notre Dame in there, and if you tell me South Carolina's playing all those games in all those situations, I frankly don't think they would be doing any better.
Okay, so you would have Notre Dame over South Carolina in this situation. All right. Well,
I did have the other 3 on my 6th line, though.
Let me go to you as David is still trying to talk.
Funny thing is, I thought John T. would invoke the Colorado principle and put Notre Dame ahead of Xavier this week. But I think the thing about Notre Dame is they still have quite a few more wins against the field than the Musketeers do, although Xavier is certainly headed in the right direction after wins against Creighton and a game against DePaul where it looked like they were looking ahead towards Villanova.
Well, here is that Xavier profile. They got the win against Creighton. I guess, well, Ty, let me let you respond to this Xavier comment and why they are better than Notre Dame.
It's kind of a recency bias in that Notre Dame has lost to everybody in the past 30 days. Xavier, when you're beating teams like Creighton, regardless of whether or not their point guard is healthy, I think it goes a long way. And they had been trending downward. I think they're finally getting it back in the right direction. Obviously, a win over Louisville is a fantastic win. It's close. Again, another coin flip, I think. But I think Xavier has a good, legitimate claim for this 6th line.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and not exercise any vetoes at all on this line. I think it's a pretty solid line. I like the picks. I am convinced about Notre Dame being down below the 6th line, although if you want to try to argue below the 7 line, I'm going to veto you for certain. And Matt, let me turn to you and give you a chance to make that argument.
Yeah, no, Notre Dame will definitely be my top 7 seeds. I actually have them at 20 on my S curve.
Okay.
And then after that, I have SMU, then USC, and then we're going to have to start reaching, and I have the Cyclones, Iowa State as my final 7.
So we have garbage below this. Oh, I'm sorry. I honestly think that there is a cutoff right here in the middle of the 7 line between when we leave the good teams and we start entering that bubble territory. Salika, let me get your thoughts on this, though.
Yeah, my initial thought would have been I would have taken Virginia Tech ahead of Iowa State, but the more I think about it, what have the Hokies really done ever since beating Duke? I mean, they also had a pretty bad loss point-wise against NC State back in January, but what else has the Virginia Tech done? They've also won at Michigan, but for some reason, you guys don't seem to think they're a tournament team at this point.
Well,
I certainly do.
David, yeah, I've got you back off of the mute again. I'm gonna
And then when the drugs wore off, I realized, holy cow, I am in the wrong house.
Okay. David,
Is we off mute? Okay.
Yeah, David. Now that you're back, we're looking at Notre Dame, SMU, USC, Iowa State there, and I just pulled up Virginia Tech's profile, as Slika mentioned.
Yeah, I'm not that far away from Virginia Tech. I don't have Iowa State that close to here, but I do have, and I know their RPI is categorically really, really low, but I still like the top of their profile. I have Marquette this high.
Whoa. I'm a Marquette fan, David, and I have to scream out and bounce on that one.
Yeah, with RPI of 76, that is a very bad RPI. I'll pull that Marquette profile up here, and Matt, since this was your line, I'll let you respond to it. And are you against Marquette?
Well, they have the win at Creighton and the home win.
Right now,
Look at those wins. Oh,
yeah, I was talking to Matt, not to you, David.
Yeah,
sorry.
Just, I think, way too schizo profile to have up this high.
Yeah, again, we have a St. John's loss. We have a Providence loss at home. We have losses to Michigan and Pittsburgh. Win at Creighton, home win over Villanova. Compare that to a Virginia Tech, even, who doesn't have that quality of the bad losses. And the other team we mentioned there was Iowa State. But Titel, what are your thoughts on these teams?
I like the first three: Notre Dame, SMU, USC. I think the fourth one's a toss-up, and I'm glad you put up that profile because that is the one I was leaning towards. Look at the losses and not just the amount of them, which is not great, but how many of them are against not just good teams but great teams. Baylor, Kansas, Gonzaga, Cincy. Those are 4 of the top 15 teams in the nation. Obviously, the Texas loss is brutal. Probably enough to keep them off this line using the Colorado and now Colorado/Texas principle for John S. But the Kansas win is huge, so a good argument can be made. If I had to pick another team, I'd say the Hokies, but you could also pick several other Big Ten teams. I mean, it's up in the air.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go ahead and not exercise any vetoes at all. I'm going to let Matt's Iowa State.
So you're going to keep Iowa State up there.
Yeah, I am going to.
Over Nebraska. You can't be serious.
David, I was going to go to you for the 8 line, but maybe I should skip you. But I know I'm going to regret it, but David, go ahead. Why don't you give me your 8 seeds?
Well, Marquette, who I already mentioned, and then it kind of gets into garbage. But here are 2 teams with very big signature wins that no one below them, I think, has. K-State is one, Oklahoma State's another, and then I have Virginia Tech. Rounding out the 8s.
Okay, I'm kind of holding my nose as I'm typing in.
I'm not saying they smell good.
And Virginia Tech. Pytel, let me go to you. Are we way too early for a team like Kansas State?
Not.
Really? Okay.
They beat West Virginia and Baylor. Talk about 2 of the best wins in the country. I mean, I had them on the 9 line, which means the 8 line is reasonable. I think that Oklahoma State is certainly trending up, beating West Virginia as well. As I mentioned, I like the Hokies. Marquette, I would say they're a little farther down. I would put a Big Ten team like Minnesota or Northwestern here. But, again, they're all in the ballpark. We're getting into hold-your-nose territory.
Well, and I think you just mentioned the 2 teams that I think we've overlooked so far, going with a K-State and a Marquette at this point, which are Minnesota and Northwestern. But, Matt, let me ask you about it. Where would you agree with David on this being the Big 12 line, or Titel that this should be a Big 10 line?
I'd have Northwestern here. Another Big Ten team you just mentioned that I seem to be much higher on is Michigan.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. Let me start with Northwestern here. Here's this Northwestern profile, Matt. And what we see here is these back-to-back losses, including this home loss to Illinois that really kind of stunk.
It was not a great idea, and then that's what not for me. I had them as probably as a 7 before that, so I knocked them down, but I still have them as an 8. And then for my Michigan argument is basically we know all these teams have issues, but man, when Michigan is good, they could be really good.
All right.
They have 4 wins over teams, or I guess 3 now that I've knocked in, but 3 wins over tournament teams by double figures. So that And
Well,
that
well,
to me is where,
those
like-
three tournament teams are SMU a 7 seed, Michigan State who's not in yet, and Marquette an 8 seed in what we just did.
And
Uh,
one true road win.
And yeah, let's find those road wins, David. Can you show me where?
Down.
I'm still going. Wait. Copyright 2016 ES. Nope, can't find them.
You can't take a team that hasn't won at least one. And I mean, my thing is, yes, every team has baggage at this point, but Michigan has more baggage than an airport carousel. Yeah.
Stalika, I gotta get your thoughts on this line here.
Let me also add another side note as it relates to a Northwestern. I believe their leading scorer, Lindsey, was out for that game, but I am not sure when or if he's going to be returning, so let's keep that in mind. But
he has mono.
So he'll
I'm
be
sorry?
back.
He has mono, so he'll be back, but it probably will be another couple weeks.
But I think that being said, I still would have included Minnesota and Northwestern over teams like Marquette and Kansas State that are still pretty volatile at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the tipping point for me was I think that they're all kind of the same as in 8-9 teams, but what got the teams on the 8 line versus what didn't was the big wins. And, you know, that Marquette has, that K-State and Oklahoma State has, and that Virginia Tech, well, sort of has.
David, I want to pull this Minnesota profile and have you respond to them as to why they don't belong here. And I know they had a massive losing streak, but they've won 2 straight games, including Illinois.
And the win at Purdue is really good. We're looking at Minnesota, and we're not talking about a team that I have light years away from there. They're on the very next line. So it's not as if I don't see the argument for it. It's not like I have them on the 12 as opposed to the 8. I have them on a 9 as opposed to the 8. I just don't think that overall – I mean, the win at Purdue is good, but in fact, I could probably be talked into swapping them with Virginia Tech. But the other teams like Marquette, K-State, and Oklahoma State have not just monster wins, but monster wins away from home. And you know, nobody else below them really does.
Well, I'll tell you what, David, I really, really hate to do this. I'm not exercising any vetoes on you.
Well, you shouldn't. I mean,
I don't know what I'm thinking here. I wanted to veto your entire line when you read it, but I really haven't been convinced that there's a team that really belongs above these. Although we may have an all Big Ten ninth line, or at least a half Big Ten ninth line when we go over to Stalika here for it.
I have it. This is when I'm busting out a team. Well, we're going to Stalika.
Yeah, well, you just did the 8 line. You don't get to do both lines.
I think I should get to do all of them. That way we get it right.
Stalika, you're 9 seeds.
Well, I'm going to stick with Minnesota and Northwestern.
Okay.
I'm also going to go with my fellow Ken Pom fan, Matt Zakowski, and go ahead and nominate Wichita State for the 9 line right here.
Ooh,
and if we're going to be talking about my 4th 9 seed, it pains me to say this, but I'm going to add the Dayton Flyers here.
I don't think that's an awful pick at all, quite honestly.
No, I have Dayton on this line.
I'm a Xavier fan. It always pains me to have Dayton this high.
Matt, we also did not see Michigan being selected here, but David, you seem to want to respond, so go ahead.
Well, another team I think that we need to have on this line, and they need to be in the Midwest, like in the Kansas City region, and that's the Missouri Tigers, and they need to be sent to Tulsa in the Midwest region.
For the first time ever, I've muted David Choice in the same podcast. Titel, let me go to you here. Comment on Stalika's teams and tell us if there's somebody else that belongs in.
I like Minnesota, Northwestern, and Dayton. As far as Wichita State, they're certainly trending up. I think they're pounding some team as we speak, but I think they're just a little too high here. I would go for another mid-major a la VCU. Talk about a team that is playing with fire. They were literally like 0.4 seconds away from 2 separate losses this week and somehow pulled a miracle out of their butts to get it done and go 2-0. So based purely on luck, I'll throw VCU in here. I also want to see Michigan State on the consideration line just to see how they stack up to a team that just destroyed them the other night.
I think VCU is playing without a soul right now because I'm afraid they've sold it to win those last 2 games.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If one of you wanted to argue that VCU belonged to the one line, the way they can win games, I would have maybe had to accept that argument. I have never seen a team in back-to-back games with 0.4 seconds left and down a point, inbound the ball under their own baseline, win them both. It was unbelievable. But Matt, let me get your thoughts on this line here. And do VCU or Michigan State belong up here over one of these 4 teams?
Oh God, no. Not even close. I don't mind if you have these 4 over Michigan. I'm not going to be a protest because I did have them all. Either Northwestern's at 8 or the other 3 I did have is 9. So I'm not. And I will say, you want to roll your eyes over a team that really needs to be in consideration in this area? That would be the Orange of Syracuse.
All right, you want to bring up the Syracuse Orange. So, Sleek, let me go back to you here. As I can't even type in Syracuse correctly. That's how offended I am about them. But do you want to respond to this argument that maybe Syracuse belongs here over a team like Wichita State or Dayton?
I mean, if we were going back earlier in the week, I probably would have raised a hissy fit over putting them in the field. But I think after beating Clemson, I can probably concede that they would go in, but I still wouldn't have them quite as high as the 9 line, though, because I think we've also noticed another common thread in that losing to St. John's doesn't seem to be as hazardous to your health this season as we originally thought.
Yeah, David, let me try to unmute you for a second here.
I want to see what the puppet was holding up earlier.
Well, it was the border war. I mean, we're trying to bring it back.
David, other than Missouri, is there a team that you think belongs here on the 9 line over the picks that Sleeka gave us?
Actually, I didn't have Wichita quite this high, but I had them the next team down. I think we should at least look at Indiana, and I realize that it's so much more fun to argue against them than it is to argue for them, but they do have North Carolina and Kansas under their belts. And at what point in none of their losses really, with the exception of Fort Wayne, are that awful. And where does that land you when you're that schizophrenic, but the top of your profile's that good?
Well, Tytel, let me give you a chance to answer David's question. As we look at the tons and tons of losses that Indiana has with only 2 wins a note.
They're 2 great wins, Kansas and Carolina. I can't argue with that. I mean, they're fantastic. Sweeping Penn State, my God, put them on the 7 line for God's sake. I just think I know VCU hasn't beaten a lot of. They don't. I mean, you could argue their best win is Middle Tennessee, which, as you are well aware, we have not mentioned yet. So not one of the 30, 35 best teams in the country. I just think that they've really got it going. They've beaten a bunch of mid-majors. I don't see – there are some losses that are questionable. I don't know that any are embarrassing. So a coin flip. We're getting into holding the nose time, but I think they have merit here.
All right. And, well, Tytel, let me stick with you also. Matt mentioned Syracuse. What do you do with a profile like this Syracuse team? You're our expert at guessing what the committee is going to do, and here is that Syracuse profile on the screen with so much bad but now 5 straight wins.
Yeah, I mean, losing at BC by 15, I think the Colorado-Texas principle needs to be expanded to include BC. Not to mention losing at home by 33 to anyone, much less St. John's, and losing at UConn at all this year. There's such bad losses. But once you look, you can't overlook that. That's part of their resume. But wins are looking great, and they keep piling them on, both at home and away. They're finally leaving the dome to go the Carrier Dome to play some games. And the losses, they're losing a bunch of games recently to top 40 teams. I get it. I thought they were done. And now they're back.
Well, I'll tell you what, Stalika, I'm going to go ahead and leave your line alone as well. I'm going to leave this 9 line. We have had 5 other teams that have been brought up here. And
3 for 3.
Wow. There you go. You and I seem to be on the same wavelength tonight, Stalika. But Tytel, let me go to you here. You've mentioned VCU. I think you probably want them on the 10 line, but I'll let you go ahead and tell me the 4 teams that you do want here.
I demand them on the 10 line, in fact. Let's get the Spartans in here. I know that they just lost badly to the Wolverines, and I thought we were done with tripping incidents, and apparently we're not. Thanks, Nick Ward. Michigan looked really good, and they're getting there. I just don't think they're there yet because they have so many losses earlier.
I have Michigan out of my field.
I don't know what to do with these bad teams from the southern part of the United States like TCU and Arkansas because they got a lot of wins against a lot of bad teams. Indiana's got a pair of great wins. Syracuse now has a pair of great wins. Some ACC team has to get up here. I guess Syracuse because they're starting to beat these great teams, but we're running out of teams. Like Indiana is in contention. There's a lot of losses on that profile too.
Well,
How about the Canes?
So you've mentioned VCU, Michigan State, Syracuse. Do you have a fourth team? Go with here. And Matt just threw out there Miami as well as a consideration.
That's a little. They have a good Yikes! Let's do TCU just because the RPI seems the best of the under considerations.
Right. And TCU, I think it's a team that we definitely have to get into this field. I'd agree with you on that. But Matt, you just mentioned Miami, which is probably the team that surprised me the most that we don't have in yet. Do you want to make their case?
Well, okay. I need to get rid of VCU. Good Lord, I want to get rid of VCU. The other three, actually, I pretty much like there. I still want Michigan. I would want Michigan instead of Miami, but both of those would be far preferable to me to VCU, who I really don't want in my field.
Michigan.
I'm hoping somewhere the sell will pay off before March. I mean, I honestly, frankly, prefer their other A-10 brother in Rhode Island. That's how much I really don't want VCU.
Wow.
We are deporting Matt to Detroit.
Okay.
If he wants Michigan, we'll give him Michigan.
David, do you want to set this right here? I mean, are we good? Are you good?
I like VCU on this line. I mean, they just picked up 2 road wins. They didn't exactly win them going away. It was, kind of close, but they did just get them. So, I like what they've done away from home. I have Michigan State on this line. I know John was gagging on them and ultimately was unable to swallow them and get them down, but I have Indiana up here. TCU just does not have the they don't have the meat at the top of their profile that Indiana has. And I know Indiana's all over the place with a lot of losses, but of all of their losses, most of them aren't too bad, and the wins are really good. And another team I think we need to at least put under consideration, I had them on this line, but I had them at the bottom. And I know that they're similar to Indiana, but they're playing well now. I had Tennessee up here.
Okay, let me put Tennessee under consideration here. And Sleek, I'm going to go to you here. But first, let me go ahead and pull up this Tennessee profile to see whether they belong on this 10 line. And if this can load here, the win at Vanderbilt, home wins over Kentucky and Kansas State, and a lot of losses. In fact, 10 losses, only 3 games over 500. And David, the loss at Mississippi State last week really, really hurt. I mean,
it
really
did.
Hurt.
Yeah, it really did hurt. And they were up by 19, and from that point on, were outscored by almost 25. It was a horrible way to finish the game, but I like the way they're playing. I think they will play their way into it, even if they're not there yet. And I'm probably projecting more than just taking a snapshot, which I always say you shouldn't do, but I can't help it. Like, they have the home win against Kentucky. With some of their losses are to really good teams, and I just think that they're trending in the right direction.
Don't be deceived by that score against Ole Miss, because they also trailed for a good chunk of that game before they were finally able to.
Well, if you consider 38 minutes a good chunk, sure.
So, Salika, do you agree with these with Titel's 10 seeds?
I could probably agree with 2 of them as far as Michigan State and VCU goes, but I would also make the case for Miami, as I've been fairly consistent in keeping them around this area, and this is another team that also survived a tough game last night. I think we need to get Seton Hall in here. I know their roster is shrinking, but they managed to survive against Providence, and even a win against California out in Pearl Harbor is starting to look a little bit better.
It's happening again. Nebraska is getting screwed again.
Yeah, Matt, here's that Seton Hall profile. Do you think that they're a team that belongs up here?
I have them on my next slide, so I do have Seton Hall now in my field after escaping those 2 overtime wins, but those were big, especially I think at Georgetown might not look as bad or as good as it even does now, because I think Georgetown is being a mentally fragile team. I am expected to go on the take now, because I think these 2 recent losses are going to demoralize them, and I have no faith in JT3 getting them up. But that was, nice win at Georgetown in a game both teams needed, and we're both about the same spot. And then, held on against a frisky Providence team that probably isn't getting in this field. Might not even make the NIT if a lot of auto bid teams lose. But it's I think, a respectable team and not easy to win, as you can see at team number 29 on our S curve.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not loving any of these 4 teams. I just haven't been convinced that any of these 4 teams, any of these other 6 teams that we've been discussing really belong above them. I think the best case I heard was for Miami. So I'm going to go ahead and fail to exercise a veto again. And I'm going to go ahead and, Matt, I'm going to give you the 11 seeds, which is going to bring us very close to our last couple of bids. But go ahead and give me your 4-11 seeds.
All right, so now, of course, I'll have Michigan. And then I'll have Miami. And then, I'll have Seton Hall. And I think I'll have Tennessee.
Okay, so at least we are discussing the same teams we were just discussing. The 2 you did not put in were Indiana or Arkansas.
I'd say for Indiana's case, if we're going to project here, they don't have OG Anunoby anymore, and he was one of the few guys on that roster that had a remote interest in playing defense.
All right. Well, Titel, let me go to you here. Do you like these picks, or is there something that you dislike about them?
I like the Miami and Seton Hall picks.
Okay.
Tennessee, the strength of schedule and a win over Kentucky are great parts of a resume. I just think that they're lacking because there's a lot of losses and they're close. I just don't think they're there. Michigan, they looked really good last night, and if we're going to put the Sparty at 10, I think Michigan at 11 is reasonable. I like Matt's point about Indiana, but I still am not ready to give up on them. They were this close to beating Purdue tonight, and call it West Coast bias, but Cal is just not going away and arguably getting better.
I
do have Cal in my field, but they were at the next slide down. I do not have Indiana in my field anymore.
Well, David, do you like Matt's picks, or do you think? Well, I know you think Indiana should be in, but
yes, I like 3 of them. Michigan is. I just cannot pick them. I don't have them in my field at all. In fact, if it were an 80-team field, they might be in my field.
You know what happened when Michigan and Indiana just played?
Yeah, I know what. Yeah, I know. But, I mean, overall, until Michigan does something away from home, I mean, you can't just be like Chad and do everything and never leave the house to do anything. You have to do things away from home.
Well, Salik, let me get your thoughts.
I would agree with Matt as far as Seton Hall and Miami. If this were last week, this would have been the spot where I would have added Middle Tennessee. But since they had a bedwetting on TV against UTEP, that is no longer an option.
Oh, my God. They lost to UTEP.
So who would you veto and replace on this line then?
I'd still agree with Michigan, but I would also swap out Tennessee with the Cal Bears right here. I mean, if the Bears can beat Arizona, it would really shoot them up the list. But as it is right now, they're a quiet 9-3 in the Pac-12.
Well, I have a tough time agreeing that the team that's 13-10 belongs in this field. And then we may get them in on the next line here with the next 2 teams. And I don't want Michigan to be in here either, but I can only exercise one veto, David.
So veto Michigan. The team with no road wins, the team that just does.
The SMU and Marquette, those were on a neutral court, so it's not like they didn't beat anyone decent away from home.
I was there.
Yeah.
The Cal Bears, it was It doesn't even want to let me do it, but I'm going to do it anyhow. Are in Tennessee is out. Michigan's going to make this field. David, I agree with you. I don't think Michigan belongs in the field either. But
Oh, yeah, but there they are.
well, I only have one veto.
And you vetoed the wrong team.
And David, I hate to do this, but I'm going to give you the first shot at putting our last two teams in, and then we're going to debate them among everybody. The only teams we've mentioned here that aren't in are Tennessee, Arkansas, and Indiana.
Well, I like two of those
teams.
teams is the two. Well, I'm going to go with either Indiana. Well, I like Indiana more, but I could stomach Tennessee, and it shouldn't be anyone other than those two for the last two spots.
So we end up putting Tennessee back in anyhow, Indiana and Tennessee. Let me run through each of you here on. Do you want to make a case that that somebody else belongs in the field here?
Is Miami? Do we have Miami? Yeah, we got Miami.
Yeah, yes. Salika.
I would actually agree here, although I would have Indiana as my last team and Tennessee my next to last team.
Okay. Well, Matt.
I had just had Indiana in my field. I knocked them out after tonight, so they're not far out. And I think I miscounted by one, so Indiana might actually be in my field. So I'm pretty cool with that.
So we're okay. Titel.
Can you throw a Clemson under consideration just so we can see their numbers real quick, please?
Sure, and I can even pull their profile up on the screen for you. I think it's a team worth mentioning at least.
Why, thank you.
I agree.
Digging deep into the ACC, I admit. The South Carolina win looks great. Wilmington win. Few people have beaten Wilmington this year, even though they're a mid-major. Look at the losses up top. I understand Oklahoma down low, which sucks. They've got a bunch of losses, a lot by single digits, the top 25 teams in the country, a lot of them, which is like Notre Dame. You're not a top 25 team because you keep losing to the top 25. Got a couple nice wins, a couple bad losses. I think that's the definition of a bubble team.
Well, here's one of the biggest problems: conference record 3-8.
It's a tough conference.
Let me mention a couple of other teams that nobody mentioned yet. If we're going to talk ACC, I think we've got to at least throw Georgia Tech's profile up there. We may only do it for half a second, but our good friend Joby cannot be here tonight, and he would definitely want us to talk them.
Yeah.
They do have home wins over North Carolina, Florida State, and Notre Dame, and the road win at VCU. The problem, once again, 10 losses. Very similar to the profile we just looked at for Clemson, quite honestly.
Yeah, it is. I think Clemson is slightly better, but again, how rough is it to be a Clemson fan? Now, I know they won the football championship, so that's got to take this sting off somewhat, but no one has almost won more games than Clemson. I mean, good grief.
I think as far as Clemson fans are concerned, they're about a week from baseball season anyhow, so...
Yeah, starts next week.
I think we have a field actually here. One other team that we did not discuss, Matt, you've been championing them for a while now. How about the Rhode Island Rams?
I think they're getting close. I probably would have them, although if you told me they replaced Indiana, I wouldn't be heartbroken, but like...
Let's compromise. Let's have them replace Michigan.
And then Michigan, who beat Indiana by 30, will be watching.
Well, Rowdy better beat Dayton if they're going to have a path into the tournament.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. I think probably need to win that to be in the field, but like are getting close. And if they eventually take VCU's spot, I would be very happy with that because I think they're the better team.
Well, Matt, is there anybody else that you think is at least even worth looking at, even if they're not going to make our field here?
No, I mean Clemson was one I would have brought up. Yeah, there's.
If that's it, that's it. That's fine.
Yeah, I would say no. I'd have to pull up my Google Sheets and see what other junk I was even considering, and it wasn't even much more than this. Clemson, Georgia Tech, Rhode Island were on my consideration board. Arkansas might have still been technically, but good lord.
Okay, Chad, a couple teams. I've got two that clearly don't belong in the field now, but have a pathway to it, and the way they're playing. It's not inconceivable that they would get there, and one is Auburn and the other is Alabama. I don't think they'll both get there, but I think it's possible that one of them might.
And
so we're doing the college football playoff show tonight.
Well, Titel, anybody else that you're looking at it? Teams like Auburn and Alabama, are they starting to get onto your radar a little?
No.
Okay. Is there anybody else that's even on your radar at this point?
A few, but they're deep enough that I don't know that we need to take anybody off this board to put them on.
Oh, I'm not suggesting we take – that wasn't what I was suggesting.
Yeah, I'm
What
just
I
looking at teams that are like just outside here. If there's anyone else that's just outside that you're looking at.
Colorado's like right there, right there.
I think Tytel's about to get his first muting. Salika, let me go to you. Is there anybody else that you looked at here? Anybody else that's at least worth mentioning that you think is within striking distance?
I think I'd mentioned during my bracket on Monday that Iowa would have been my long shot, but they could have really used a win at Minnesota to, shoot their way up the list. But as it is right now, all their good wins were at home, which would have been Iowa State, Michigan, Purdue, Ohio State, and Nebraska. They only have 2 wins away from home. So
and the home loss to Omaha.
Yeah, and as we're recording this, Nebraska has hit a shot at the buzzer to force overtime, so we need to put them in the field over Michigan.
Okay, once again, some of these late games, including that Wisconsin game, St. Mary's game, Oregon, UCLA, not factored into any of this. A couple of teams that I just want to very briefly mention. I think Texas Tech is out of the picture now. Might still within striking distance just because they're in the Big 12 and they'll have the chances. I had another team I really wanted to bring up here tonight, but they lost tonight, and that was College of Charleston out of the Colonial, but that kind of fell apart, so forget about that. But I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of the 12 line here with some auto bid teams, including Middle Tennessee, UNC Wilmington. We had a New Mexico State and Monmouth here on the 12 line.
Good 12 line.
And then I'm going to also go ahead and reveal the 13th through the 16th seeds. I can do that really quickly with a little magic trick. That is the balance of the field, though. And let me run through each of you for any other final thoughts about this field or anything else. And Matt, let me start with you.
Yeah, we're starting to see that, we only really discussed about 39 teams roughly for the 36 at-large. So it's starting to crystallize. There are, a couple of teams. I think Texas Tech's a good call-out for someone if there's a bit off the pace now that can maybe make a run for it, but there's not even that many of those. They're I guess a team like Utah probably can't get in this field with an at-large, but it wouldn't stun me if they won the Pac-12 tournament.
Which stun me. They have to get through UCLA, Arizona, and Oregon. That would really stun me. But Tytel.
Well, somebody stole my 4 overtime games on 3 straight nights thing. So as a compromise, I will go on a tirade about my Penn Quakers. We are playing our 116th season of basketball. Of that great tradition, there's only been 20 seasons, including this one, where the team has lost at least 60% of their games. Of those 20 seasons, 7 of them have occurred in the past 9 years, including the current version's horrific 7-12 team, one of 5 in the nation that is winless in conference play. The stats across the board are atrocious. 351 in free throws made, 351 in rebounding, 350 in points. There's no offense whatsoever. The only silver lining I see is that of the 17 players who have seen time on the court this year, yes, I don't know how on earth we have 17 guys on the roster, 16 of them are not seniors. So maybe the future has a chance of being bright, but this is becoming the worst era of Penn basketball of my lifetime and perhaps ever.
And is this what happens when you hire a Boston College reject?
I mean, that was a tactical error there,
David, any other thoughts?
It's been a great season, and everything is constantly in flux, so there's going to be movement. I really do think that, of the 4 teams that we have up there, I'd be surprised if at least 3 of them didn't end up on the number 1, though. I mean, I just think that there's a divider there. I still really like Virginia. I know their paper isn't quite there yet, but I think their ceiling is really high, and if they play up to it with the opportunities they have left, it wouldn't surprise me if they got all the way up there. One other observation, and I know we've kind of shuffled things around and there's been conference realignment, no under-the-radar teams wearing white, and that's coming off of several years where we saw them. Now, we don't count – Wichita's kind of having a down year, and we promoted the West Coast, so that has something to do with it, but 0 of them wearing white. Do we even have anybody on the 9 line?
Wichita State.
Yeah, Wichita State. Okay.
And Stalika, your final thoughts.
Well, I actually have a couple of them. Number one, I know the puppet is not watching the Nebraska-Wisconsin game because the Huskers just hit a 3 to send that game into overtime.
No,
And number two, if we go back to the list briefly, I have to applaud Chad for being on top of this one, and that's UNC Asheville taking the lead in the Big South. They only needed 2 overtimes, but they were able to beat Winthrop in the second leg of that rivalry.
Dear God, what? Holy crap!
You got UCLA Oregon on?
Yes, are these people? I hope we can laugh at that. Okay, in the middle of the show, the cheerleaders were doing a pyramid and it collapsed.
Oh, geez. Well, we do hope they're
And
okay.
I hope that everybody's okay. It was very comedic to see, but like you hope no one's hurt.
Well, I guess on
Yeah.
that note, we do hope they are okay. Oregon is up pretty big right now at UCLA, looking like they're going to get that win. But I do want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We were going to go ahead and bracket that up and put it down below. But we do have one last item of business here this evening before we finish up. And among all the other games tonight, there was one other thing that happened. I'm going to put this screen share back up here. But we do maintain the survival board here on our Hoops HD website. And
Yes.
heading into tonight, there were 344 teams that were eligible for the NCAA tournament. SIU Edwardsville, based upon a win by Tennessee State earlier tonight, has been eliminated, and there are only 343 teams left that can win the national championship. So,
Right. And of all the teams we considered for our field, all of them were among the 343. I just want to – that's why that number is important.
yes, 343 teams left. That number will start going down a lot quicker once we get towards conference tournaments. But again, on behalf of John Teitel and John Stalika down there, David Griggs, Matt Zakowski, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon.